think you can
Okay.
start the session, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, Arvind, sir. I thank the HOD, sir, for giving me the opportunity for presenting for the shoulder dislocation fundamental concepts. I would be dealing with some basic, very basics mechanism of the shoulder dislocation. What are the basic restraints and things like that. So let's go ahead without wasting any time. So as you all know that shoulder is a highly mobile joint because of its golf ball concept. So you see the glenoid is very small, just about 25 to 30 millimeter, whereas the head of humerus is about 140 millimeter. So the whole uh, stability is lost because of its mobility. Okay. So this is how we are going to relate to a whole length of it, and we are seeing this. The shoulder dislocation is not new. It is there since time immemorial. Even in the Egyptian pyramids, the Kocher maneuver is well encrypted, where there are various methods which are being described in the literature. So without wasting much time, so many people think that shoulder dislocation means it is shoulder dislocation. Pen. Yeah. So many people think that the shoulder dislocation means that just a Bankhart's lesion, which is here, exactly here. But it is not that only this. It is also, it can have a problem like a greater tuberosity fracture like this, where there is no Bankhart's lesion, and that can also be present at shoulder dislocation, and that can be managed well with conservatively or operatively if it is displaced, depending on type. And this is mainly in this is the labrum. The inferior glenohumeral ligament is the key ligament. If it is near the glenoid, then it is called as Bankart lesion. Like if it is happen at this point in the arrow, then it will be called as Hegel lesion. So it can also happen over here. And here posteriorly, the also the inferior glenohumeral ligament can be torn. It is not only that, the glenoid bone loss can also happen as here. So as you see here, the Hegel lesion is here you see this is near the head of humerus, and this is where the glenoid labrum is fully torn apart and come. It is the opposite of this is where this place normally it happens. Here is normally the Bankart lesion happens here, whereas the Hegel lesion happens over here. Okay. So it can happen even in the mid substance, even here or here. Okay. So any place it can happen. So as you know, the coracoid process is the lighthouse of the shoulder anteriorly. The musculocutaneous nerve passes just 5 centimeters below it. The scapulohumeral motion interface, usually superficially it is with the deltoid, acromioclavicular ligament, coracoid process and its tendon, and the deep process, usually the humerus, rotator cuff, biceps tendon, all are having related. There is usually a doubt between everybody asks me that what is rotator interval? Rotator interval is nothing but the interval between supraspinatus and the subscapularis. It is empty space. It is where they say the coma tissue is present. And the scapulohumeral ligaments, they are the primary. The thickest is the inferior, about 2.8 millimeters thick. Superior glenohumeral ligament, it is the rotatory interval, provides a static restraints against the inferior translation here. The middle glenohumeral ligament to a lesser extent, to the lesser tuberosity, and the inferior glenohumeral ligament. This has got two bands, both anterior and posterior, and both have to be restored. That is the most important part here. I would also encourage, if they have any doubt at any time, I would request you to unmute yourself and ask me the questions. So it is not only one-sided learning. There should be a two-sided learning. Okay, if you have any doubt in between, please unmute yourself and ask then and there. I'll be very happy if I'm able to explain. I'll give some common terms what are used in shoulder. So like superior glenohumeral ligament I used, it is over here. Buford complex is over here. And various Bankart lesion, it can be in various forms, which I'll discuss in further slides. Bankart lesion is the rim avulsion, ALPSA anterior posterior periosteal avulsion, GLAD lesion, glenoid labral avulsion. Hagel lesion is in the other side of the inferior glenohumeral ligament. You see the IGHL can cause internal impingement. These are two bands of IGHL which are there present here. So here I show you this. This is the classical Bankart's lesion. Here anteriorly is seen, and this is the osseous Bankart lesion. This is reverse Bankart, where posterior end of the glenoid labrum is torn. This is the Perth's lesion, where the periosteal sleeve itself is avulsed from here, and anterior labro-periosteal sleeve avulsion, where the glenoid labrum moves posteriorly with the periosteum, and GLAD lesion, the chondral injury is present here. Okay, so it's not much of a difference. But one thing I would like to draw your attention. See here, if the coracoacromial ligament increases the inferior translation, okay, and that's why it is kept in the place. So they are also quite important. This is the humeral jet joint reaction force. This is the glenoid is a small and the ball is quite big. Okay, so the forces actor, and if you imagine already, if this is a small glenoid, and if the joints, if the labrum is also torn, the golf ball will fall down. Okay, so labrum acts as a protective for the preventing the golf ball to come out. Okay, similarly it happens here. It is not only that, it is also the, along with the ligaments and other structures, it is the version of the glenoid. Glenoid is normally 0-degree version, 2 degree plus or minus it can be there, whereas humerus is, has it, everybody all over India has from 10 to minus 15-degree version, it can be there. Usually they say it is retroverted, but there is a large variation in the version as well. And these are the various views. Commonly it is an inferior dislocation, so all over the region can have a glenoid labral avulsion can happen here. There is a net unbalanced force. Suppose one muscle is weak anteriorly, okay, and force is applied posteriorly, then if the muscle is not balanced both sides, then it can also cause a dislocation, because here anteriorly is the supraspinatus and posteriorly is the infraspinatus. So that is very important to have a balanced force. And secondly, more importantly, you see, this is how this suboptimal repair, especially which happens in an open Bankart's repair, where you place the Bankart's labrum anteriorly to the glenoid and attach it. This is a suboptimal repair. This is how the repair takes place in the open Bankart surgery. But in arthroscopic Bankart repair, where the magnification is so much that you attach the labrum exactly where it belongs to, and that's why the arthroscopic Bankart repair is much preferred. Although it is technically very much demanding, it is much preferred. See, before, I know everybody, all of you want to do arthroscopic surgery, But basically, you should all understand that you should be a very good open surgery. You should be able to do most of the things in open very well. Then you venture on to arthroscopic surgery. Straight away, if you think without knowing how to do an open Bankart surgery, you are going to venture upon arthroscopic Bankart surgery is not correct. Okay, you should able to do the open surgery very well first. And most important, you should know the glenoid version. You see the glenoid is retroverted. This is abnormal glenoid version, which can cause the dislocation. And here, even if the head is, even the glabrum is not all right, so it can cause the version. So there are many factors in glenoid dislocation. Okay, as I told, the subscapularis and infraspinatus makes a couple anteriorly and posteriorly. So even this couple, if it is not in fully, then it can cause a problem. The supraspinatus and the deltoid anteriorly, they cause a medial force, which helps the humerus to hold it in front. Basically, the medicine is classified as macro trauma, micro trauma, and atraumatic. Macro trauma is a single traumatic event which causes the major traumatic, which is a um, very painful accident and very heavy trauma, which causes the shoulder dislocate, which usually has a Bankart's lesion. Whereas the micro trauma, usually the upper limb overhead athletes, regular gymnastic persons who are doing overhead gym activity in a lot, they usually have micro trauma. Micro trauma is where the regular repetitive episode which leads to micro injury which doesn't heal, and a single traumatic event causes the dislocation. Okay, whereas macro trauma, they don't have any regular injury. There is no history of abuse to the shoulder is present, like in gym activity person or a regular overhead sports person, where micro trauma is the cause. And there is one more subset that is completely atraumatic condition, especially when the Bicton score is more than 7, 8, where the ligament laxity is at stake. So they can be even habitual dislocators. They can habitually dislocate without any concern, without any pain, and they can again go back to normal. Whereas recurrent dislocation is usually they are not habitual and it is very painful. It is because of a single trauma and it causes it. And most importantly, you should remember, guys, that a single traumatic if it dislocation, if you keep it unreduced, that is the most absurd thing. If you keep it more than 24 hours, they are known to cause avascular necrosis. So as early as possible, even if you take the reduce it as early as possible, the avascular necrosis and pain and disability can be reduced. Okay. So there are various types. It can be congenital, especially dysplastic, Ehlers-Danlos. It can be acute, chronic. It can be locked. It can be recurrent. Recurrent is a term used because of the trauma. It is again and again because of the non-healing of the Bankart's lesion. Usually they say that if there is a single Bankart lesion, the tissue inside the shoulder doesn't heal. Why? Because of the joint fluid, which has got hyaluronidase. It doesn't allow the blood to clot and the tissue doesn't heal, and that is the reason. Many surgeons advocate even for the first time dislocation to do surgery, but we usually normally don't follow in our place. We normally give them a good rehab program, good physiotherapy, good tactile feedback, and good muscle strengthening exercise, which itself helps most of them to recover their shoulder problem. Minor trauma, minor labral tear, they all do heal. These two terms you must understand very well. Tubbs, Ambry. I saw the recent Campbell edition doesn't have this Tubbs and Ambry word. Tubbs is you need single traumatic Unidirectional traumatic episode needs Bankart surgery. Ambry is atraumatic, multidirectional, bilateral, whereas inferior capsular shift has to be done. Whereas in TUBS, Bankart surgery needs to be done here. Okay, 15% are familial history, voluntary and involuntary, neuromuscular, encephalitis, cerebral palsy, plexus injury, stroke, all can cause. Dislocation or subluxation can be caused. 45% of all dislocation, of which 85% are anterior. Subcoracoid, subglenoid, intrathoracic, retroperitoneal can also be there. Now posterior dislocation. They can also be subacromial, subglenoid, and subspinous, depending upon the year, usually because of electric shock or seizure. Usually if any patient has suffered an electric shock or seizure, and then you suspect it is in posterior dislocation. There can be luxatio erecta, inferior dislocation here. So in this you have to give traction in the forward and superior traction and forward traction and reduce it in this way. There can be a superior dislocation, fracture of the acromion, acromioclavicular, coracoid, humerus, and their tuberosities. The soft tissue damage to the cuff, biceps tendon, and the surrounding bone all can be injured. Bilateral, usually it is because of the seizures and electric shock. Clinical features, especially history of mechanism, that is position of the arm of paramount force and point of force of application is important. In anterior dislocation, it is extension, abduction, and external rotation. In electric and seizure, fall on a flexed or adducted posterior dislocation can happen. So especially when it is adducted and flexed, you think of posterior. When it is abducted, external rotated, you think of anterior. Okay. The humeral head, anteriorly it is palpable. On examination, there is a posterior hollow held in extension and external rotation. It is important to assess the neurovascular injury, as 33% of the patient can have an axillary nerve palsy. Okay. Posterior dislocation, posterior prominence and rounding off is gone, and it is especially adducted and internal rotated in posterior dislocation. There is anterior flattening and the coracoid prominence is felt. I'm giving you in sequence both anterior and posterior, so you have an idea of both anterior as well as posterior. So now what are the x-rays you need to take for any dislocation? Standard AP x-ray should never be taken. It is always a true AP x-ray where the plane of cassette is always in plane of the scapula, 45 degrees in compared to the body. Okay, first you take that and the scapular Y view like this, and then the axillary view. These are the basic x-ray. For any shoulder pathology, these three x-rays are to be taken, must. And never take x-ray like this. True AP is x-ray are only to be taken and never an AP x-ray. AP x-ray gives, even it can mask a false dislocation can be masked and you may miss it. Okay. So always a true AP X-ray like this. You see the X-ray, you should see the head of the humerus and the glenoid separately like this. There should be a joint cavity. Okay, there should be a gap between both of them. If you are able to see this, that means a true AP is taken. Always I like to see the X-ray like this, which gives lot of information. These are the various axillary view. See, it is a traumatic dislocation. It is very painful. To take an axillary view is very, very difficult. But if you know this technique like this shoulder Welpe view like this, when he's in the arm pouch, you take like this, or in like this position, special cassette is required for this position, or something like this, or something like this. Depending on the whichever facility you are available and whatever you have, Welpe view can be easily taken many times. Okay, depending. And other additional x-rays which are required for the shoulder is an apical oblique view, which is very, very important, where 45-degree superior and 45-degree patient is tilted. Okay, and this is an west point view. Okay, 25-degree is tilted superiorly when patient is lying in a prone position. This is a classical striker notch view. These all X-rays are especially needed for assessment of the Hill-Sachs lesion in the head. There can be associated injury with the anterior dislocation, especially ligament and capsule. There can be a fractures, especially of the glenoid, especially of the humeral head, the tuberosity, the coracoid processes, all can be fractured. The cuff tear is mainly the pain and weakness in external rotation and abduction. MRI is indicated, especially if it is more than 40 and there is displacement more than 3 weeks and there is weakness. So all these things you need to evaluate them for the cuff tear and do the needful. And as I told, axillary nerve is 33% of the cases of shoulder dislocation have axillary nerve palsy. What are the injuries now with posterior dislocation? Glenoid rim, proximal humerus fractures, reverse Hill-Sachs. Normally the Hill-Sachs is on the posterior aspect of the head of the humerus. But in reverse Hill-Sachs, when the head is dislocated posteriorly, the anterior part of the glenoid is injured. So it causes a reverse Hill-Sachs lesion. Posterior dislocation is overlooked due to the fracture of the proximal humerus. Neurovascular is less common in posterior dislocation. So gently, if you get any dislocation, expeditiously a set of complete radiographs have to be taken. If you are not immediate access to radiograph, don't wait for the radiograph. Try to do the dislocation. Reduce the dislocation on the basis of the clinical grounds. This very important technique where you can give an straight away, if there is a dislocated head, give an intra-articular about 5 to 10 cc of local anesthesia, which gives a very pain-free reduction, and it can also give much very easily it can be reduced, especially when a heavy individual is there and hefty individual is there. This technique is very, very helpful. We'll discuss the various maneuvers. Moses traction, counter traction method, like this it is given from time immemorial. It was been described like this: Hippocrates method, Stimpson's gravity assisted method, Coker's method. It is simply flexion of the elbow and traction, external rotation, adduction, and then internal rotation. Okay. In chronically, it is minimal traction without leverage, open if repeated gentle attempts fail, manage after reduction. Sling is adequate. 0 to 45-degree program, range of movement program for 3 weeks. Cuff and deltoid and isometric exercises are the mainstay in such dislocations. Indications for early surgery. When do you need to do surgery in dislocation? It is mainly the soft tissue interposition, supra, infra, and teres minor and subscapularis, or a long head of biceps injury. Then you need to intervene. Whether there is a displaced greater tuberosity fracture, glenoid rim is fractured, Bankhart's repair decreases the recurrent instability from 18% to only 14% if it is repaired in first time individuals. So that is why normally, even if it is a young individual, we wait for the second episode to happen and then only we do. For the first time, we give a very good physio rehab and rehabilitation so that the patient does a very good muscle coupling, force coupling. You saw the supra, infra muscle coupling happens very well, and healing, there is a good chance for healing. Even if it doesn't heal, then second episode or third episode and it is very painful, then we go ahead and do the surgery, not on the first episode. So as I said, you saw the glenoid track concept, both engaging and on track and what is off track, the medial Hill-Sachs and the lateral Hill-Sachs. So for which one to do just a Bankart surgery will be sufficient, and for which one to do a
bank cards with the remplissage, especially when less than 25% of glenoid loss is there, as well as the Hill-Sachs lesion is there, then you need to calculate the index. Then you do the remplissage as well. And if the glenoid is straight away more than 25% of bone loss, then it is preferable to do a Latarjet surgery. Where in Latarjet, what does it mean? The glenoid is in the glenoid, anterior to the glenoid, the coracoid is cut and coracoid is kept as a door stopper in front of the glenoid labrum. The glenoid labrum is as well as repaired for the Latarjet surgery. The labrum is repaired, it is because for it to give a proprioceptive sensation, so that it gives a proprioception and a negative feedback for the individual to stop his dislocation. As well as you should know that it is not only the negative, the full axillary deltopectoral incision which you must be aware of, you should be also aware of the mini axillary incision, especially in females. It is described as Lacy and Raya. Okay. As you know, the superior glenohumeral ligament, the middle glenohumeral ligament, and the inferior glenohumeral ligament, which has got two bands. It is very important to have this. The inferior glenohumeral ligament acts as a hammock. So here we are going to just a demonstration of the arthroscopic Bankart repair, how it is done by the Sanjay Desai himself. I thank you for this video. Now let us come to the posterior dislocation. It is reduction, extraction, and internal rotation. It's easier than better with muscle relaxation, and especially if it is locked, then you need to do an open reduction. And for post reduction task, you need to brace it with little external rotation and extension, abduction for 4 weeks, and some pin fixation is there, but the risk that it can be broken, something like this. Early surgery in posterior dislocation, especially in head defects of more than 30% and a young patient, capillary osteotomy can be done, rotational osteotomy, and in older patient, prosthetic replacement is done. And in chronic cases, subscapularis muscle transfer or a lattice-made dorsi transfer or a prosthesis has to be done. This is a stationary body. Thank you so much. Thank you. You have any doubts, dear students? You can please ask.
I think that was a very nice presentation by Vardhaman sir.
Request all the postgraduates to actively participate, so that if there is any confusion or any doubt, so it will be very easy. You can explain to you. I'll be very happy to answer. Just unmute yourself and you can ask.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Tell me.
Sir, what the X-rays we can take for the determining Bankart lesion, sir? Any standard X-ray view is available for
standard X-ray, as I had shown here. So you just please take the standard X-ray of true AP view, scapular Y view, and axillary view. These three views for any shoulder is must. And when, particularly when in a recurrent dislocation where you suspect the head of the humerus is also there is a problem, then you take a Stryker notch view. That is very easy. You just keep your hand like this, ask the patient to keep his hand on his head like this, and then you just simply take the X-ray. Stryker notch view is very easy. Other views also I showed: axillary apical west oblique view, where you keep the beam 45 degree in front, and then you take, and one more is west, apical west view. Okay, west point view. Okay, so these two also can be taken, but at least these four has to be taken: true AP, axillary, scapular Y view, and Stryker notch view. These four X-rays are taken in any shoulder unit across the globe. This is standard.
Yes.
Breast point view and apical axillary view, all these are additions. Okay. Yeah, any other question?
Sir, in the modified Banker's repair, when we are doing arthroscopy, sir, what is the north to south something like implication is there, sir? That I am not able to understand this.
See, in suppose I'll not just a minute. See, suppose if it is what you say that arthroscopy north south. See, because this is a
Yes.
Participants kindly actively participate and ask your doubts in the shoulder joint, especially
This is the
regarding
glenoid.
dislocations and other things.
See, this is the glenoid. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Suppose this is suppose this is considered this place as the anterior. So this is the labrum which is torn. Okay. Say this is the labrum which is torn like this. Okay. And what you do here, you go first debride it, release it from under surface and remove it, the labral attachment from the glenoid here. What is north, south to north shift? It is not north to south. North means superior and south means inferior. This is what they say. So if you want to have a shift, so what they do is first take a bite from inferior, take a bite here, from here, this middle one anchor. The shift is and in the glenoid superiorly. So it is south to north shift. And first they take here, and then they go down and take the another bite here in the IGHL, because IGHL is most important. Suppose if we are doing it the first anchor itself, then it doesn't heal properly. So the second anchor we take here. So by this way we are shifting the whole repair towards from south to north side. Okay, so this is our whole aim. Okay, so that we want to create a good hammer. And here also, as you showed in the Desai video, that here also posteriorly also IGHL is there, and they repair this also as well. They take a couple of anchors here also. Okay, that gives better stability, more robustness, good tactile feedback, and then the rehabilitation is very fast. And usually rehabilitation, usually for any glenoid repair or any arthroscopic repair, standard is that 6 weeks, just apart from pendulum exercise, nothing actively is done. About just 0 to 30 degree, just change of clothes, that much only is done. Only after 6 weeks, good exercise and rehab program is started. We don't want whatever repair we have done, it should not be in a jeopardy. Once the healing has taken place, we are sure that it's not going to loosen out, because our exercise physically, what we do, it should not loosen out. Once the repair is good, healing is good, we are sure about our repair, and then we go on and progressively increase our exercise level of physiotherapy from the 6th. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Stop share.